drive. Tatum the finish. It is banner 18. The mission commanded is mission accomplished.
What's up, everyone? This is Noa Dalzell, and I'm here with another episode of You Got Boston. And we have a very special guest joining us today for just kind of an all-encompassing conversation. Jeff Twiss, the Celtics Vice President of Media Services and Alumni Relations, and one of the first people I met when I started covering the team 2 years ago. Jeff, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Noah. Thank you very much.
So a couple things about Jeff, and Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong on the numbers here. You've been with the Celtics for almost 45 years. Is that correct?
Starting my 45th year this year, correct.
That's incredible. And would you say, so I don't think I've seen a home game that you haven't been at during my 2 years. Do you have to guess what percent of home games during that span have you been at as a member of the organization?
Well, I'm not trying to steal your thunder, but a former intern asked, gee, how many games has you been over 40-something years, a few years ago, Noah? And so we actually figured it out. And I actually have only missed 11 home games in 45 years.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
That's either births, deaths in the family, whatever it might have been.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's in 45 years. It's kind of a neat stat to throw around, I guess.
That is incredible. It's just probably very few people have seen that much basketball history, if any, firsthand. So what I wanted to talk about today is just like how you first got involved with the team, what your experience has been like over the last 45 years. But also to kind of honor you and to let our viewers know that one of the really exciting things that's happened in the last year is that you were awarded the winner of the John Bunn Lifetime Achievement Award by the Basketball Hall of Fame. And that is an honor that is bestowed upon an international or national figure who has contributed greatly to the game of basketball. And I looked through the winners, and it is an esteemed company. And you will be joining that company very shortly in just a couple of weeks here. And I'm curious from your standpoint, you've been with the team for a very long time. We're going to talk a little bit about that. But what was that like, finding out that you had won that award? Did you have any idea that it is something that was in the cards for you? And now that the dust has kind of settled, because this was in February when you found out, right?
Correct.
What has that kind of been like?
Well, I did have an inkling. I'll be very honest with you. I had an inkling, maybe a couple summers ago, totally in passing, with a conversation with a few of the people at the Hall of Fame. Because they were doing an exhibit. They wanted to prepare an exhibit on the Celtics in their new wing out there called the Vault. And in passing, they just said, oh, well, you've been nominated for such and such an award. And I kind of went in one ear and out the other saying, oh, great. And I didn't think much of it. I thought, oh, thank you very much. Very flattering, and kind of kept on and moved on with the conversations. So then, as you said, this past February, sitting here at my desk, most of the people had left to go to the All-Star break weekend. And I got a phone call at my desk, and it's like, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Like, who's calling me now? And from 413 area code, which I believe is in the western part of the state. So I said, oh, my first reaction, Noah, was, something happened in the Vault. So we gave him one of our trophies on loan to the Hall of Fame. So I said, oh no, someone's come from the Hall of Fame. Something happened to the trophy. Something got stolen. It got broken. That was my first reaction. And then I picked up the phone. It was John DeLeva, the president of the Hall of Fame. He goes, how you doing? I said, good. I said, is there anything the matter? He goes, oh, no. Are you sitting down? And then I said, something is the matter. I figured sitting down meant, oh, no. I expected the worst. And he said, no, you should, I want to announce the Bunn Award winner, and that's you. And I kind of went, what? You sure you got the right guy? I mean, wait a minute. I'm always in the position, Noah, to publicize and make people available, whoever win the awards, for interviews and things like that. So I thought about it. I was like, wait a minute, you sure it's me? And I'm still pinching myself since that day in February till now. So I've still got it. And
that's incredible.
I've been recognized by the Board of Trustees at the Hall of Fame. Yeah.
So this has been a big year, not just because obviously the Celtics won a title last spring. Then in February, you get this honor. And then I mean, I don't know if this has changed your life at all, but I feel like you were such a big part of the Celtics City documentary that I wonder if have you felt like people know you more or recognize your face more just from all the interviews that were there? I was like, I didn't realize how many key moments you were a part of until I watched that documentary, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to get you on here. Because I kind of realized how intertwined you were with both really good things and then also really tragic moments, right? I know you were in the hospital with Reggie Lewis and things like that. And so did that documentary like bring things back for you? Did it change? Do you feel like people just around the TD Garden recognize you more? Like, what was that experience like?
It's interesting. It's not so much around the city so much, nor like when I go to Logan Airport or pass through the terminal, but here at the Garden now, people do like one of those. Okay, that's him. And then they go, hey, you've been around a while. It's like, yes. Hey, what do you do? And it answers other questions like that. Oh, by the way, I saw you in the documentary. So it kind of spurs people into a good conversation, a fun conversation that you do get recognized in some respects, other than being Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown out on the court. Yeah.
Right. I always find, I mean, I'm sure it happens a lot more to you than to me, but even myself as a Celtics reporter, I love when people come up to me, TD Garden, and they're like, oh, you cover the Celtics. Because if you think about it, like, we all go through life, like, as social people that like want to talk to people, but you're not going to usually go up to some random person on the street and just start talking to them for no reason. So for me, it's kind of like an excuse to have a conversation when somebody comes up to me. I'm sure if I was Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown, I would feel a little bit differently about it just because of like the nature of their fame and everything. But so wanted to start a little bit at the top. When 1981, you first joined the team, and I've asked you this before, but I'm curious just how it happened that you got this job. And were you a fan before? Was this like a dream of yours, or is it something that you just kind of stumbled into?
I was always fascinated growing up as a kid. I grew up in Vermont, so you didn't have a lot of coverage, if you know what I'm saying, TV coverage back then. Occasionally we saw some games in the old black and white TVs. I was always impressed and fascinated. How come the Celtics kept winning? How'd they do it year after year after year? And you had some guy on the bench that smoked a cigar when they got it close to a victory. How did they do that? I mean, and it was just fascinating me, the whole culture of the Celtics back then. And then it got to be a point in time when I was, to make a long story short, at the University of Vermont. I was going to be the best physical education teacher in the world. No, I was going to be the best coach and PE teacher. Well, I was a PE teacher for a few years, but at the time, and this is in the fall of 1976, about this time of year, I was sitting down with my advisor, say you're my advisor, and she asked the $1 million question, well, what would you do if you didn't get a teaching job? I did one of these, what? Wait a minute, I just went through 3 years of college. Everybody gets a job. She goes, well, not necessarily. I said, okay. I've always been fascinated by the Celtics. And when a game comes on at 1 o'clock, 7:30, someone had to get stuff ready to be prepared for the game, other than the coaches and players in the locker room. She goes, oh, yeah. So she knew Jeff Cohen, and Jeff Cohen, Noah, was the assistant general manager to Red Auerbach at that time. Came down for an interview. I dressed up my wool suit, sweating to death and perspiring profusely, and got the interview. And he said, well, what we can do, because as I said, as a PE teacher, so I had to do a student teaching requirement. Half of my student teaching was with the Celtics. That would be September and October of 1976. And then the other half would be student teaching at a school in Burlington, Vermont, at Colchester High School. Worked out great. When that experience was done, I kind of kept in touch with then the publicity director. His name was Howie McHugh. And Howie, Noah, was the original publicity director of the team in 1946. And he was from 46 until he passed away in 83. But I was fortunate enough to work with him in 76. Then kept in touch with him, came back. And at the age of 25, I said, I'm not going to be a teacher the rest of my life. So I went and got my master's degree at UMass Amherst in sport management. And at the time, my advisor then said, you can do another internship. So I'll do it with the Celtics. He goes, no. What do you mean, no? He said, no, because the Celtics aren't hiring. And people got to understand, Noah, in 81, the staff was like 17 people. That was
the whole staff.
Office. 17 people in the front office staff. I'm not counting coaches or players.
Yeah. How much is it now? Do you know? How many people is it now? Do you know?
Over 200.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
So we had 17 people.
Yeah.
So my advisor was trying to make the point was they're a small kind of family mom and pop knit organization. Not too many people from the outside just come in and get hired. Okay. So I said, well, I did the first internship. I enjoyed it. I want to do more. So I did. And then in the fall of 1981, jumped to 1981. This is the summer of 81. I did the internship. One of my duties was to drive Red Auerbach, Coach Auerbach, around, because Red, God rest his soul, was a notoriously NASCAR Formula One driver. He had no rules, no holes barred, 100 miles an hour, straight through. If you're in the way, get out of the way. That was him driving. So my job was to drive him. So on October 10th, 1981, is a Saturday night. We're coming back from Providence, Rhode Island in a preseason game. And I'm driving, minding my own business, keep my mouth shut. He's in the passenger side, puffing on a cigar. And he goes, "You really want to work for us?" I said, I'd very much like to, coach. And he said, "Well, come in and see me Monday morning. We'll talk about it." Okay. Yeah, 9 o'clock. I'll see you at 9 o'clock. I'm there at 8:45, here again, sweating and profusely shaking. And he was running late. So I said, "Oh no, something happened. We aren't going to have, this isn't going to work out." Gets in about 9:15. Of course, he doesn't apologize. That's typical Red. Gotta love him. Just comes barging, come on in the room. Okay, come sit down. All right, I sat down. He said, "You really want to work for us?" "Yes, sir." "Okay, here's what the deal is. Company car, 2 season tickets, $10,500. Take it or leave it." I stood up, shook his hand, walked out of the room, said, "Thank you very much." He says, "Now go get to work. Get out of here." That was it. That's how I got hired.
Oh my gosh.
There's
Was
no
that a
filter.
good set? Was that a good setup at the time? I'm thinking, company car, not bad. Season
Yeah.
tickets, not worth what they're worth today, but still a nice perk.
But you got to remember, this is the Bird era too, so it's going to be pretty good.
Okay. So it wasn't maybe worth more than I'm thinking. But you were so excited to work for the team that you didn't even have follow-up questions. You just were like, I'm definitely going to do that. Yeah.
Didn't care what I did, how much I worked. There's no time limit. Looking at the clock. No, it's 5 o'clock. I don't care. 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock at night. I don't care. Bring on the hours. And I didn't care what a title was. I didn't have to be vice president or director. I was administrative assistant. I was there in order to help everybody from the equipment manager to the owner and everybody.
It didn't matter. Yeah.
Didn't matter.
So when did you, find yourself in the role that, is kind of more similar to the role that I know you in, as working as one of the lead people for the media, the public relations, media relations team? When did that happen? Was that a few years after?
Well, and when I was first hired, I was in the same, back then we shared offices, if you can picture. So the PR director at the time, named Todd Rosenzweig, and I kind of shared this office. So I did a lot of the PR duties that I wasn't helping out other people in the office. And then it happened to be maybe a year and a half into my working tenure, that our marketing director, Mike Cole, got hired by the league, by the NBA. This is in probably 1982, 83, Noah. So Todd he wanted something different to do. He'd been there 6 or 8 years. He wanted to try the marketing role that Mike left to. So Todd shifted over to marketing, and I got promoted up to Todd's job as PR director back then. Yeah.
So it happened pretty quick.
Within the first year and a half of 2 years of my tenure. Right. Correct.
Yeah. And so I was thinking about this because obviously as a reporter, I interface with you guys all the time, right? Whenever we have a media request, after every game, you announce to the room which players are going to speak. And I'm sure countless other responsibilities that I'm not even aware of, because I've learned that it's much more than just setting up our interviews. But back then, I would imagine it was a completely different role, or at least like the parameters. Because I was thinking, social media is such a big part of today, and like all the, the millions of outlets and bloggers and, all of that. But how much has the role of a media relations director changed from when you started to today? Like, does it feel like two different worlds, or at its core, is it pretty much the same mission, I guess?
The same mission, Noah, is to service you and to service everybody else in the media industry. That's the fundamental role of whatever year I'm in, whatever role I'm in. That's still to service you to the best of our ability. I'm the kind of the conduit between our organization, players, coaches, management, and you folks, to try to assist in where I can, provide information, provide accurate and fair information, and to be fair to everyone. So that's the fundamental role from 1981 till we're talking here today. Now, people and your viewers are going to chuckle at this. We didn't have podcasts. We didn't have cell phones. We didn't have email. We didn't have internet. We didn't have those at our disposal. I'll give you an example. We had what was called a telecopier. And it's kind of you put one sheet of blank paper into a little system, and it goes in, and a needle reads the paper, that reads the print on the other end of the phone if you're receiving it. No, that took 6 minutes to do one page. And if the page came out or you couldn't read it, you have to start it all over again for 6 minutes. Now you hit send or receive, you get it on instantaneous. So talk about poor time management that I experienced in the first few years of my life. I sit my head going, oh my word. it's just, now it's so much simpler, quicker, easier, and probably more efficient because accuracy is so key in your line of work, where if you get some statistics wrong, your viewers are going to say, wait a minute, whoa, no, this person averaged 19.3 points a game, not 20 points a game. It has to be accurate and concise.
For us, though, we can go in and just edit the article really quick. Most of us don't even write for print outlets. And so you can, there's a level of like, you can kind of go and fix mistakes, but I would imagine it's completely the opposite back then. But how much has like social media changed things, even just in the last, 15 years? Because I would imagine now, like, used to be like, there's a big story in the paper, right? And that's, if there's a story that was inaccurate or, a player got in trouble, that would be, I'm sure, something that you guys had to work through. But now it's like, it's Twitter, it's Reddit, it's Instagram, it's TikTok, it's like all these different platforms. You think it's changed the nature of what it means to work in public relations, and has it, is and relates with the players and all of that as well?
Certainly, and I'll give you a quick comparison. Back when I started, Noah, the newspapers were king. The newspaper business really saved, or helped promote the NBA. I mean, yes, Larry Bird, Magic Johnson in the 80s, they kind of turned it around and helped springboard the NBA did what it is today. But really, newspapers gave you the features, they gave you the nuts and bolts, the day-to-day coverage, the pregame notes type of thing that the writers used to do. That was all key, and that had more access to the players in the locker room, at practice. I mean, nowadays, the players and the Players Association and others have kind of gotten the situation where, okay, you go through us to request a player. Okay, fine. Back when I started, of course, everybody wanted Larry, Kevin, and Robert, pretty much. But you know what I'm saying? They just literally went up to him and started talking to him. Then they say, "Oh, do you mind if I get this on record?" And they either go yes or no, and they'll put up the recorder and they'll start talking. So I look over and say, "Oh, okay, such and such is talking to Larry." Okay. But that was now all that's changed. Maybe it's more accountability. Maybe I'm saying, and more of a process nowadays than it was back then. But here again, I think that with the players back then, they were giving of their time, and they knew there's a great trust factor in who was interviewing them. Or if they came through me to say they didn't know someone from the outside, from the Washington Times or the LA Times, they'd go through me and I'll say, "Hey, player X, this is person X from the LA Times. I vetted them," type thing. They're good people. They'll do a good story on it. So that was kind of the way it's changed now. So today I think there's so many outlets, you said, in social media, and there's very little filtering or accountability or editing of what may be said. Not you, but per se, but if a lot of people said something out on a blog, and people read that, meaning the general public, they'll come to us saying, "Well, gee, is this true about player X?" We're going, "No." They said, "Oh, they didn't do it by this." No, they just send it out with whatever purpose and intent in mind, which is fine, but it's inaccurate.
Yeah.
So we're constantly trying to be more the source of reliable, accurate information. And it would say, people say, "Oh, did you just trade Jaylen Brown?" No. We did not trade Jaylen Brown. You trust us. We would announce if we would trade a player,
Right.
So
and it's funny because I always, I'm always like search, like whenever I write an article, I always want to see if it's coming up in Google, depending on like my headline and things. And a lot of times I'll search like Celtics, and the top story will be like, "New Celtics trade sends Derek White to California." And it's like, that's not a trade that happened. It's not a trade that anybody reported. But as long as somebody made it up as like a mock trade, now that's the first thing that's on the internet. And I always think about how that definitely never happened before, because you would have like the trusted papers that were credentialed, that had relationships with people. But sometimes I feel like I miss the golden era of reporting, where you could have more trust with the players and more trust with even the audience, because accuracy was like such a priority. Whereas now it's harder to control that. Like maybe if you work for a couple outlets, but for the most part, like the internet is filled with misinformation. That's kind of the name of the game, because that's what gets clicks. And so I can only imagine how, from your guys' standpoint, like that's a very difficult thing to sort through as well. PrizePicks is the best place to turn your sports knowledge into cash. With millions of members, PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 2,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the best way to get action on sports in more than 30 states, including California, Texas, and Georgia. PrizePicks is the best place to win cash while watching sports. Join millions of users and sign up today. On PrizePicks, you can mix and match player projections from different sports, combine your favorite basketball players with players from baseball, hockey, esports, and much more. PrizePicks invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports takes into real money all season long on PrizePicks. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That is code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. I was going to ask you, I think on a kind of a separate note, but we talk a lot about what it means to be a Celtic, and is this player a Celtic, Celtic's values. I go to a lot of the community events, and that's a big point of emphasis as well. When you first joined the team, was that a notion that you were familiar with, like the Celtics values, like what it meant to be a part of the organization? And now if somebody were to come from a different country and say, Jeff, you've worked with this organization for 45 years. What does it mean to be a Celtic? Like, how would you describe that? How would you capture kind of the essential tenets of that?
Sure. And it's not so much the banners in the rafters or how many rings you won. It's the pride and the teamwork and the faith and trust in your coworkers and your teammates. That's a lot what I feel the Celtics are all about. Yes, service to others. That's key. Your availability and your time for others, because everyone kind of wants a piece of whoever it is, from the greatest player to me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And they're curious. There's a curiosity factor to that. But I think that you have to be consistent and you have to be fair. And I remember when I was starting with the team, and I'll pick a player, John Havlicek or Tommy Heinsohn, would come in and they'd say, hey, can you do this for me? And I did it. Then automatically you've gained their trust. You know what I'm saying? Hey, this guy can do it. He followed through. He let me know he did this. And you just build up that credibility and trust with them. And look, what they started on and off the court in the 50s and 60s, we're just trying to be the keepers of the flame. We want to keep that excellence and that quality service to others and fairness to others the best we can, because they really set the bars on and off the court for really being just instrumental on a lot of topics. We can delve into many topics, Noah, whether it's civil rights, whether it's being the all first black team, the first black head coach, whatever. We could, winning 8 championships, and how can you do that? And Red Auerbach once said, as a coach, he said, I was driving around. He goes, it was tough for me to coach. And I looked at him and I said, really? It's tough. You won all those years. He goes, yeah, but figure it, year after year after year, you have the same group of guys. How are you going to motivate them? How are you going to keep them interested to win every single year? And I never thought about that. I said, wow, you're right. That's quite an art. That's quite a technique, and how brilliant he was as a coach.
One of the things that I didn't realize, and honestly, until watching Celtics City, was in my mind, they were like this really dominant team that just destroyed everybody and they blew everybody out. And then when you go back and you realize how many close games they won, how many triple overtime thrillers, and how it easily could have not been, 8 titles if a couple of things had gone differently. And that's what Joe Mazzulla talks about a lot today, is about how, to win a game, so many things have to go right. And the difference between a championship and a team that is disappointed is sometimes executing on 4 plays, right? Which sometimes gets lost. My observation watching that documentary was I actually saw some parallels between Joe and Red, and some of the things that Joe says. I feel like I didn't know where they came from, and I don't know for sure, but it felt a little bit like there was some parallel. Do you ever have it where there are people in the current organization, whether it's Joe Mazzulla, whether it's Jaylen Brown and Bill Russell, which was I know a thread in the documentary, where you're like, this person reminds me of somebody from 30 years ago, and where they're kind of carrying those values in their what they say, how they act? Does that happen to you often?
It does. And I'll give you a real good example. When I first started here, as I said, Dave Cowens in the 1970s, as a person and as a player, very, very polite, very gentleman, very businesslike off the court. Once he stepped across that line on the court, he's like an intense, driven, maniac. I mean that in a nice way. Okay. Yeah. Fast forward that 10 more years, when I started in 81, you got a guy by the name of Larry Bird. Same thing, very, very polite, very gentleman off the court. Get him on the court. I mean, he's intense as all get out. He is driven. Every single game, every practice, Noah, that I went. Same thing. Fast forward 20 more years, you got a guy by number 5, Kevin Garnett. Same thing. Intense, motivated, unbelievable concentration. But yet off the court, great gentleman, great guy. He really is. So I mean, it's amazing the errors of different people that come
Yeah.
along. Brad Stevens is a lot like Red in some respects, and a little bit like Chris Ford when he was coaching. Every detail matters. Don't overlook the small things. Small things matter. And Brad always used to say that. He's right. I mean, you can't do everything precisely,
Right.
but at least if you try to capture it and try to say, okay, at least I tried to solve it. You check that box. You may have come out successful or not, but at least you've attempted to do things and try to hit all those small details.
One of the apps I use the most, one of my favorite apps, is the Gametime app. I've never been to an NFL game, and I plan on going to a Patriots game for the first time ever this season. And I'm going to look at the Gametime app in order to do so. Every ticket I've literally bought in my adult life, I've purchased on Gametime. So the way you do it is you just download the app, you search the event that you want to attend. So I'm searching Patriots, and I see the first ticket. The first game, home opener against the Raiders on Sunday, it is only $170 to get in, which I would have thought that it would be actually a lot more expensive for the home opener. There's been a lot of buzz around the Patriots this season. And I can see there's no hidden prices. There's a bunch of reasons why the Gametime app works for me. There's no, I'm not going to go to checkout and see that there's additional cost. It's with the price that it is the price that I'll be paying. There's a low price guarantee, so I don't have to worry that maybe there's a cheaper option elsewhere. I like getting good deals. I don't want to get ripped off. And then this is the thing that's the most important to me is I hate when I show up to the venue and you don't have a good angle of the event that you're going to watch. Like at a basketball game, I don't want to sit at the corner where I can't see the basket. At a concert, suddenly there's a wall that's obstructing you. So with the Gametime app, you can see exactly what the view is going to be from the spot that you pick. So it just makes the experience so much smoother. I bought tickets directly from people. I've used alternative sites and it just has not been as smooth as an experience. So this is my favorite way to buy tickets. I plan on going to some events this fall before the Celtic season starts. Take the guesswork out of buying NFL tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download the Gametime app today. What do you mean by every detail matters? Who you sign for the 15th roster spot, or even smaller details than that, like how you
team chemistry, character, leadership, responsiveness. How's the person do in the community? Are they a good representative of the Celtics and the brand? Are they personable? Are they fair? Are they conscientious? Things like that are quality. Not only that, but also little things like, the fundamentals of the game. Do your layups right, do your jump shots right, do your free throws this. Harp on that because that will come back. As you said, when you have a close game, it might just pay off in those close games to equal a W or an L. So little things like
Interesting.
that. Yeah.
Interesting. Are there you mentioned Kevin Garnett and Larry Bird. Are there players from the more recent era that remind you of certain guys from earlier on?
Yes. Let me give me a minute here. I would say Derek White is a lot like, and I hate to make comparisons, but he has traits of JoJo White. Not to make someone else's name. Yeah, very similar, and also a little bit of Avery Bradley. Remember Avery Bradley? He
was one of my favorite players growing up.
So Avery was quick hands, good defensive-minded guard who became a very good offensive player. JoJo was a tremendous offensive player who became better defensively as he progressed. So Derek's a good example of it. I had one other one too that I was thinking of. Give me a minute here. It was, Sam Hauser, a little bit. And you're going to chuckle at this one maybe a little bit of Kelly Olynyk from a few years, not height-wise, but demeanor, approach to the game, obviously offensive firepower. A little bit of Kelly Olynyk and a little bit of Eddie House in him. You heard him just offensive shooting wise.
Yeah.
3-point nature pretty much, but still, you know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah. And so you celebrated 4 championships with the team as an employee?
4 championships, been to 8 finals and 4 championships, about 500. Yes.
1984, 1986, 2008, and 2024.
Correct.
Do you have any favorite memories or moments from any of those runs or just throughout those years with the organization?
Well, I tell you, Noah, it's very fortunate to be part of 4 of them, but fortunate to be part of 8 and win 4. And obviously the first one is special. It's kind of like, you're having a first child or you're going through graduation from high school. It's an event. And I don't mean to be corny, but the people on that team in '84, you remain a close bond too. It's an extra special bond. Not that all the other teams aren't, but there's something unique and special about that because you went through a journey, a trek, ups and downs from September all the way through to June, and you survived. And you're the top of the level of the NBA, and you're proud of that. But it's also you look back and you say, wow, it took a lot out of you. And I'll go one other step further. We went to the finals 4 straight years, 84, 85, 86, 87. And Larry Bird always used to say, you go through the finals, that's 2 extra months in the season. Well, he said we added a year onto our season without even noting it. So you had 8 2 months years. You had 2 months times 4 is 8. That's 8 months. That's a whole nother year of basketball playing. You figured it. And I never thought about that way. And he says, no wonder you get worn out, you get tired, you get worn down a little bit. It's understandable. It's a whole 2-month odyssey from regular season to the finals.
You've been a part of a lot of great teams, during the regular season. The 4 that won the title, was there something? Could you feel like, okay, this group, like there's something different when I'm around them, or like it feels more likely, or is it just one of those things where sometimes you do it, sometimes you don't? But there were many teams that felt like they were going to be great.
Yes, well, I must admit, my first day as an intern, we go back to 1981. Noah, was in May, I think May 13th or 14th, on a Monday, and the Celtics had just beaten the Rockets for Bird, McHale, and Parrish's first title together. So I came in on the coattails of them, basically. So I see them stagger off the planes after celebrating and having a good night on the way back from Houston because they won it in Houston. So I'm sitting there going, wow, this is what pro sports is all about. And I'm sitting there going, wait a minute, what did I get myself into? And then I learned afterwards that with all the interest from the community and our season ticket holders and fans wanting to buy tickets, I mean, it was like working for the Beatles or the Rolling Stones or something, like, wow, this is incredible. People wanted to buy tickets like crazy. So it was fun being there. And I said, well, if they've won one, pretty good chance they're probably going to win one other one some point soon. It did in '84, did in '86. So I was very fortunate to be part of, as I said, coming on the coattails of those guys.
And then, when you 20 or so years where the team is not quite as competitive, did it feel really different going to work as far as like, the magic of the 80s and also the magic that I know, like most of my life, the Celtics have been contenders. Was there a different like feeling going to work every day? Was there a different energy in the building? Or do you feel like the culture around the team was able to sustain losing in a sense?
Well, the energy was still there. And I compliment the fans because, and one thing here again, I'll quote Larry Bird on this. He says, you can't fool Boston Celtics fans. They know when you're putting out, they know when you're giving a good effort or when you're dogging it and you aren't playing your best. As long as you gave it a good effort, they'll appreciate that. Win or lose, obviously, hopefully win. But if you lose and you still come out and you give 110% effort, they value it and they know it. And they're very smart, savvy fans. So that energy and that optimism and hope was always there because after Larry retired in '92 and Kevin in '93, it was a little bit of a tail off there. But we still had some hope to try to get Antoine Walker and another player, which happened to be Paul Pierce. So there's always some hope there. But I think what happened was, Noah, from our good ownership, from Harry Mangurian to Don Gaston, Paul Dupuis, and Alan Cohen, that was a good solid base for 15, 16 years when I first started. Other things happened where, Coach Auerbach's health was getting kind of poor. Dave Gavitt comes in. Paul Gaston took over for his dad. So there's shifts on this level, not so much the team level. And we're kind of okay on the team level, not as competitive as we were in the 80s, but still okay. So there's still some hope there to try to be good. I think it really hit when we didn't make the playoffs, believe it or not, for like 4 or 5 straight years from that mid 90s to the early 2002 center. That was there's like a big void back then. And then you had other things like the NBA lockout was in there. Yeah, those types of things, different strikes. So there's things out of the normalcy of the 80s that happened in the 90s that took over. And we moved from the Garden to the Fleet Center. So that was a whole big culture change right there in 1995, 96.
This is probably a weird question to ask you, but obviously, you've done a job, this job for so long. You've worked with so many different people. We've talked about how it's changed. And you win this massive award that usually PR people don't win, right? Why do you think what made you so good at this job, or what made you get to the point where you're now kind of getting this recognition from the Basketball Hall of Fame, which I grew up thinking the Basketball Hall of Fame was like church, because my family is so obsessed with basketball that to me, it's like the first time I was there, I was like, this is like a spiritual site,
Yeah, very much.
And so,
I agree.
yeah, what is it about you that you think made you a good fit from somebody who was going to be a gym teacher to actually like sticking this out?
And I mean this very sincerely. I mean, it's the people I work with.
Yeah.
Okay. Now that's everybody from owners in red, as I said, down to the equipment men. They all have different personalities, different likes, different strengths, and different approaches to things that you can kind of say, oh, well, how come he did it this way? And you think about it for a minute and go, oh, now I know why. And it's okay, that's cool. He does it this way. Red would do it this way, or Howie would do it this way. And it all meshes together to equal success and what the Celtics are all about. And it's really the people who I work with every single day. That includes media, because there's media, season ticket holders, sponsors, former players, current players, coaches. There's a whole list of people there that you intertwine with and work with that made me me. And here again, I try to be as fair, conscientious, and serviceable to everybody as I can. Doesn't matter who they are, what outlet they're working for, how many years they've been doing it. No. You're trying to either learn about us or gain access to a game or have an interview. Fine. I'm here to help.
And that the alumni relations part, and you mentioned the team historian a little bit too. How often do you talk to past players? Is it just when you need something, or do you kind of keep in touch with them throughout the year?
I try to, how can I say, be more proactive to them instead of me asking stuff, because it seems like in our line of work as PR people, we're always kind of like, hey, can you do this interview? Hey, can you sit down for this guy for 20 minutes? And it seems like always that I'm always asking something of a coach or a player. So in this regard, now I'm in a position to say, okay, if there's a sponsorship opportunity and they want someone to speak at a engagement, hey, they offer this. Are you available to do it and get paid for it, instead of saying you aren't doing it for free? Not that it's important to do things for free, because it is. But now I'm in the position to be able to do, hey, you need tickets to a game? We can help you out. Happy to help you out. So it's now, and another thing I try to do is try to keep up. It's called a Legends Quarterly. I try to do like a quarterly newsletter. Now I try to email it to everybody. It's just kind of basically a summary of what's happened in the last 3 or 4 months with the team, and if there's anything that a legend is currently doing. Gee, he's having a gymnasium dedicated, a road dedicated in his name. I'll put that in there so everybody now knows, because as you know, in this day and age of life, things fly by, and it's a whirlwind pace that we all live in. To get something you can read and say, okay, I'll call it up on my email. Oh, there's page 1, read this. You take time to read it through it. And the other thing I try to do is try to send them like a little gift during the holidays, a hat, a shirt, whatever.
Yeah. That's nice. You kind of get to give back to them a little bit for all the requests that you might have.
Exactly. So as you see my name coming, they aren't. I say, oh, what does he want now?
Yeah. Right. I was thinking about that. That is kind of one of the weird things about being a media member is, like, obviously in my eyes, I would want to have as good of a relationship as possible with all of the players that we cover, because I think you can have better conversations, better trust, and also just like from a human level, why would you not want that? But it's hard because, the majority of our relationship is asking them for things for us. It's very rare that we're helping the players, right? Like usually we need a quote, we need an interview, we need 20 minutes, we need a contact, whatever it is, we need a statement on something. So it is one of those things that I feel like you guys are in a somewhat similar position, but not quite as rigid, where it's not a good baseline for a relationship when you're always the one asking for something. But something I've been thinking a lot about in the last year, like as I was, year 1, I was just like kind of going through the motions, I'm going to ask the questions. And the second year I was like, how do we change this dynamic a little bit so that it's not like we're always asking them of things? And especially like most of the time we're talking to them is right after a game, which if it was a bad game, it's not like the most optimal timing. So I don't have an answer for it, but it's interesting to hear kind of how you've navigated that. The one other thing I was going to ask you, last year, the championship, ceremony, when the banner raising, you kind of wheeled in Bob Cousy, right? And that was, I thought that was a really special moment. There's a lot of images of it that I was just looking at the other day. What was that like? And how special is it to be able to bring former players for celebrations, which I've imagined you've done now a couple of times over the years, where you're bringing in past players and you're kind of facilitating all of that?
Correct. It's and we started this conversation, this podcast, and when I was always fascinated by watching some of the players on black and white TVs when I was a kid. Well, you just brought up Bob Cousy. I never saw him play, but I did see Bill Russell here again on TV. And to help escort, let's put it that way, Mr. Cousy out to the court. I mean, someone asked me, said, "You mind doing it?" I said, "Mind doing it? I mean, I'll pay to do it. I mean, tell me when and where I'm there." For Bob, I'd do anything. And the other thing was, same thing was when we honored the 57, 67, what was it, 55, 57. We honored the various years in the 75th anniversary a few years ago. And someone said, "Oh, do you want to escort Bill Russell out? Because Bill's balance was a little bit off." And I said, "Mind? I don't mind, but I'm going to be shaking worse than him." They go, "Why?" "There's Bill Russell." I mean, I got to take Bill Russell by the arm and walk him to center court. Happy to do it, but I don't want to trip on the parquet floor and look like a fool. And Bill Russell and Jeff Twiss go down on the floor. That's not going to make for a good moment. So I got to share one other thing with you. When getting back to Bob Cousy, when I was starting to escort him out, he turns around and he goes, "Don't mess this up." I said, "Okay." Then he starts doing this with his feet. He broke up the anxiety level for me. It's like, oh, now I can relax again. He's good. So, but it's fun.
Do you feel like those two guys you were more starstruck by because you never directly worked with them? Because I'd imagine the guys that you were there when they joined the team, or you worked directly with, that kind of goes away. But were those guys more like you were a fan, really, and so when they came back, it felt a little bit different?
Very much so, and that's why I had to kind of in my head, my stupid head, to say, "Hey, wait a minute, okay, John Havlicek just walked in the office. Oh, I got to be cool. I love John Havlicek. Admired the way he played. Nope. How can I help you, John? This type of thing. And, oh, I need a couple of tickets for this. I need this sent out to my mom. Okay, fine, done. They need to leave. And I'm sitting there going, wow, this John Havlicek just came in. Wow, well, and then, or any player from that era. Tommy Heinsohn was obviously terrific because he was like one of us. He's a co-worker for all of us. He's just so lovable and friendly to be with. So, and all of them just got to be so great. Sat Sanders, I go through the whole list, Noah. They're just, people I admired, respected, and really thought very highly of as ball players. Then you get to know them as people. Then it's like, wow, this is a double header action. They're both great people and great ball players. This is neat. So
that's amazing. So the last thing I was going to ask you, I'm sure you have a million stories and a million things that that never were reported or never came out. Have you ever thought about writing a book or kind of putting all this into writing anywhere?
Yes, I have. And I've started the process of it. And as you know, and probably many of your listeners, viewers know, there are a plethora, as we say, of Celtics books or Celtics related books. I can see some now just saying, "Oh, here comes another Celtics book." This will be different, Noah, because no one's really written from the perspective of being a front office employee, having the opportunity, not to boast or brag, for 20 some odd years to drive Red Auerbach around to various engagements or preseason games. I got all those stories up here and some I've written down. I must admit, I was telling someone the other day, I was looking at my notes and going, wait a minute, April 16th, 1985, there's like hand scribble. I go, what the heck is this? So some of my notes are a little cryptic and archaic, so I got to go back now and relive those moments best I can to put it in the book form. Yeah.
So you're going to do it?
I am going to do it. A lot of people said, one of these, do it. And I said, no, it's not me. I don't want fanfare. No. But they said, oh, you got a lot of good stories, like you just said.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to put some of them down in print.
Because I was thinking there are a lot of Celtics books, but they're usually told from the outside. And so it's the same stories, the same, images all kind of retold. And sometimes they're better than others, but I feel like you would have things that are brand new. Is there a lot of tough judgment calls to figure out which stories would never be appropriate to put out, or certain stories are near and dear? Or do you feel like it's pretty intuitive to know what can be out there?
Well, yeah, I'll be selfish in this regard. There a lot of them are going to be near and dear to me, which I want to share with others. I'm not the type of person who's going to say, "Oh boy, this guy was a real, crazy idiot." I don't want to work with this guy. No, that's you don't want to read that. No one wants to. There's too much negativity, not to say it this way. This has some fun. Has some positive stories. You can look back and say, "Boy, this really happened." I swear, after some of the stories you're going to read, Noah, people are going to come after me with a straitjacket. They aren't going to believe me that this happened back in the era that it did. But it'll be fun when it's out there. So yeah.
Do you have any idea when you're going to do it, or are you just in the early stages?
I've started already. A little bits of
Oh,
bits and pieces
amazing.
of it already. I mean, couple pages of it. Actually put it in a typing form. I got a lot of, as I said, a lot of notes all over the place, like sticky notes and all that stuff. So I got to kind of put my arms around it and say, okay, let's do this and get it together. So I will.
Awesome. Well, I look forward to reading it. Jeff, thank you
You'll
so
get a
much for
copy.
joining. Yeah, really appreciate it. It's been awesome to get to know you a little bit even more.
Thanks,
and thank you
Noah.
for taking the time to join this podcast.
My pleasure. Thank you. Best wishes to you.